It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Hey, today I want to do an A4 Revolution update, but ladies and gentlemen, stick with me because the last two slides are so powerful, it's going to blow your minds. If you're a dealer owner, okay, I need you to make sure you're sitting at your desk, get a bottle of aspirin, maybe open up your left drawer, pull out that bourbon. You're going to have to probably take a drink when I show you these last two slides. But ladies and gentlemen, over the last couple of years, I kind of been beating the dealers up a little bit, calling them overspeccers and oversellers and, telling them they got to pivot into A4. And I think for the most part, they're listening. I mean, they see the marketplace going in a different direction. They're trying to make adjustments. They're trying to pivot into IT services and things like that. But you know what? We gotta give credit due where it's due, and it's really the OEMs. Those OEMs are just as guilty of overspeccing and overselling as our dealers. Quite honestly, the OEMs are worse. They put themselves in this position to have to manufacture these big giant copy machines, the big ones that do the big paper that nobody wants. I mean, nobody wants them anymore. Well, some people want them, obviously. I think 4% of the people that run an A3 actually do 11 by 17 paper. Yeah, 4%. I think there's a few churches around the country that probably want a booklet finisher still. But of course, through COVID, they probably figured out they can do all that on Facebook. They don't need to print a bunch of bulletins anymore on Sunday. So we'll see a big decline in that space as well. But for the most part, about 85-90% of every A3 in the world, based on the volume, could easily be an A4. We all know that, right? So the OEMs are just as guilty because they're forcing dealers to continue to buy A3s. They really are. If you don't believe me, call up your OEM. Call up your mainline OEM. The OEM that's you've been their partner for 50 years. Maybe your granddad started with this OEM. And call them up and say, hello, Mr. and Mrs. OEM. We've decided that we're going to start pivoting into A4, which means we're not going to be buying as much A3 from you, which means our revenue to you is going to decline. I mean, it just is because, A4 is cheaper than A3. And oh, by the way, A4 uses a whole lot less parts than A3, so we're not going to be buying as many parts from you either. And the volumes are dropping and dropping and dropping, so we're not going to be buying as many supplies from you either. What do you think the OEM is going to say? Oh, well, we'd love to help you do that. I mean, we want to help you pivot into IT. We want to help you do everything you possibly can do to go from A3 to A4. We are so excited. We are so excited to help you take our average unit cost to you, our dealer, of about $6,000 down to $2,000 or $1,200. We're excited about that. You see, they're not excited about that. They don't have any plan in place to even accommodate that. And if we looked at them over the last year and a half, what have they really done? We got some people still kicking off A3s. Ladies and gentlemen, the reality of it is, you're in a boat with your OEM. That's the truth. Every dealer out there is in the boat with an OEM or two or three, whatever you choose. And the question you have to ask yourself, is that boat going to sink with you and the OEM in it? In that sea of irrelevancy? Irrelevancy? See the spin on words there? Or are you going to try to align yourself with OEMs that will adapt to where we're going? Are you going to, align yourself with OEMs that realize that more and more of your customers are going to be buying A4 and they need to help you get there? And they need to stop putting all the pressure on you for A3. These are tough conversations, but somebody better sure as hell have them. Because ladies and gentlemen, as these OEMs start to consolidate, if they consolidate with these attitudes, it's going to be brutal. It will be brutal. They'll literally start canceling dealers across the country because the ones that fall in the trap of continuing to overspec and oversell these big giant A3s are going to get preferential treatment. While everybody else is trying to deliver A4 with customer centricities in mind. The product-centric thinkers might win with some of these OEMs. We've got to pay attention to these things. These are real probabilities, folks. Just because nobody else talks about it doesn't mean it's not a probability. Ladies and gentlemen, follow the money. It's simple. Retail on an A4 50-page a minute machine is $3,000. Dealer cost is $1,200. Retail on an A3 50-page machine is $15,000. Dealer cost is $6,000. If you look in the Next Era database, what does Wes always say? There's almost 4 calls on an A3 to 1 call on an A4 MFP when they're doing the same volume. 4 to 1. How many parts you think you're using in those 4 calls? Dealers, the OEMs don't want you to switch to A4 that use a whole lot less parts, have a whole lot less screws, have a whole lot need for all these service parts. Not only are you giving them a whipping on the hardware cost to you, If they can't sell you all the parts, they're taking another whipping there. The business was built on what? Hardware and annuities. When more and more of this stuff becomes A4, those OEMs are going to be pressured to do what? Well, hopefully to do the right thing and move to the customer-centric processes of creating really good A4 machines. But if they don't, they don't have to worry about it because their good friends at Lexmark make fantastic A4 machines. Ladies and gentlemen, here's those two slides I was talking about, and I want you to look at these because it's scary. So I asked Wes, would you put a slide together, and I wanted to know of all the A4s that went out into the marketplace in the month of January. Of all the thousands of machines that went into the marketplace that were A4s in the BEI NextEra database, how many were under $500? 17% of them, folks. 17% of the A4s that went into the marketplace in the month of January in all the dealers' offices that are on the NextEra platform were sub $500 machines. 38% of them were sub $1,000. And this is list price. That doesn't mean they were sold by the dealer for $1,000. That just means that's what list price says it costs. I mean, they could have been $900, $800, $600. These could have been sold for $200. Who knows? 40% of them, folks, were sub $2,000. 40% of the A4s that went into the marketplace were sub $2,000. This is for January, but this trend has been going on for a long time. It's just getting worse. But now the slide that's going to make you take the aspirin and drink the bourbon. How many A4s went into the marketplace as a percentage to A4s, to A3s? Ladies and gentlemen, the month of January, 15% of all the new placements inside that huge database of NextEra were A3. 15%. 85% of all the new placements that went into the NextEra database, hundreds of dealers across the land, guess what? Were A4s. So even without your permission, even without your support, even without your OEM helping you, 85% of your new placements in January were A4, not A3. If you don't start preparing for this trend, you're going to be in that boat with your OEM sinking to the bottom of the sea of irrelevancy. It's time to wake up, folks. A4 is real. The transformation is powerful. You could be on the front side of that and control it, or you can be on the back side of it and just lose your butt. But one thing's for sure, my friends, we all know this. Status quo is the killer of all that will be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow.